They tell me that I'm never gonna make it. They want me to do something that could make sense. They hate when I keep dreaming I'll be famous, but I don't give a fuck, I'ma keep chasing.
What's up to the Be Better squad? Hope y'all are out there doing good, leveling up each and every day out here. It's good to be back. We got Bruce on again. Little follow-up from last episode. We had some technical difficulties, as y'all would know if you watched the last one. So if you haven't watched that, go back and give that a look before you watch this one. We're going to kind of take where we left off on the last one, but thank you guys for all the support. Loved having you on last time. Excited to have you on again. And so when this will drop, I'll be in Tennessee. Stay tuned for that. We're going to be doing a lot of cool things down there.
Gatlinburg.
Yeah, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. My man Ivan's getting a new car, so stay tuned for that.
Nice.
Some hard work paid off. But, yeah, episode number 6, Be Better Podcast. Let's get right into it. So where we left off was we were talking about your history with running and the 50 milers and 7 marathons that you had put in, so no joke. And so how did running kind of help you guide your way through sobriety, and did it kind of like show you that maybe you did have a drinking problem because it was affecting your running?
Yeah, running's been important to me for most of my adult life from high school on, and obviously my drinking impacted my running. I can distinctly remember when I was training for a marathon, and this was pre-sobriety. And I remember thinking to myself, I got to make sure that the number of beers I drink in the week is not greater than the miles I run. And that's that old joke, Ivan. You might be a redneck if, so you might be an alcoholic if. So I put in a serious week of mileage, did over 50 miles, and at the end of the week I could not do it. I drank 2 30-packs of beer, and I remember thinking to myself, man, this might be an issue. But then again, you play those mind games. Then, well, who else could drink 60 beers and run and do a 50-mile week? And so you start like really playing that. So, but eventually, obviously, my drinking got so bad that I could not maintain my running. And the last 4 to 5 years of my active addiction, my running was basically non-existent. And that was the first time in my life that really happened. And I remember when I was in rehab, I was in for about 2.5 weeks. And I asked my wife, Teresa, to bring my running shoes over to me. And I can remember sitting in my room there. They had like kind of like dorm room style. And I put the running shoes on, and I went out to run. And I ran in my mind, I was like, yeah, it probably was a mile, but it was probably less than a half a mile. And I was exhausted. I couldn't run any more than that. But
how long was like the period from when you stopped running until you finally put the shoes back on?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure. I had gone for a long time without running. It's for occasionally I would run a mile here, or, it never anything. You couldn't sustain it because my drinking was so bad.
And you touched on the drinking and the running. You were trying to match the miles. So I know you told me, I think, a story of you in college, like the beer mile or soming.
Yeah, I was.
Did you win that event?
Yeah, I won the. No, and the one that's. I was a member of the championship keg chugging team.
There you go.
On like Wednesday, and then for the Greek Olympics, I ran the 5K on Saturday, and so I was in good drinking and running shape. Let's just put it that way. So but when you look back on it, obviously, then you're not saying, man, this is really impacting my performance or anything. But obviously, it had to. You can't stay up to 3-4 in the morning 4 or 5 nights a week. Drinking 5 to 6 days a week, and then still think you could even remotely perform close to your maximum ability athletically. Yeah. But running became very important to my sobriety, and I became it really helped me because I could see tangible results through my running because I knew I knew a lot about running, and how, having run so much in the past, that I could see that I was gaining improvement. And I'll tell you what, the human body's an amazing mechanism, man, because you think about it, I was drunk basically every day for 10 years. And within a year of sobriety, I was back to, and I was pretty legitimate again for a 48-year-old guy. I was still decent, and I was back running halves, but it became, what I found out, I was starting to swap one addiction for another addiction. I was running, I was lifting, I was doing 500 push-ups a week, hundreds of pull-ups. So I was in great shape, and I looked pretty good, I think. And so, but I realized that I was still escaping through my running, and then I realized something had to change, and because I still wasn't as present as much as a father and a husband as I should be. So I had to really alter that and stop worrying about racing, running certain times, because that wasn't important. And for the first time in my life, I just enjoyed running for running. And that was a big thing. I mean, I would go out and maybe run a 5-miler and not time it or anything. And that was hard for me to do, but running became more of a kind of almost a meditation time for me. So it was
I know you spoke about before, you said about 10% of the population has an addictive personality.
Correct, yes.
So do you think for, that 10%, is it very important that they almost replace their addiction, whether it's drinking or whatever the problem addiction is, with a healthier source like running, working out?
Well, I believe any type of replacing healthy habits in there is going to be beneficial to you. First and foremost, though, you need to have a kind of what I would call a recovery plan, and you need a sober support network, whether that be AA, Celebrate Recovery, working with a private therapist, what have you. You need that, support network. And we were talking about this before we came on air. We were talking about a term called a geographical cure, and we were the three of us were having a healthy debate on that. And that, because a lot of people believe that
heated, healthy.
Yeah. So it's the double H's. So it's I can't tell you how many people I've heard say, I'm going to move away and things will be much different.
Yeah.
And, particularly when I'm talking about from an addiction issue, the geographical cures do not work because you're taking the problem with you, and that's you. Until you work on yourself and looking at changing and addressing yourself. And again, we go back to that piece, that whole honesty piece, and getting real and honest with yourself. And that is hard, because that last step would be saying, I need help. And that's very hard for people. I can tell you, before I went to rehab or anything, I told my wife Teresa that I would try AA. And so I would go to these meetings, but I could not. I would get to the parking lot, and I could not bring myself to step out of the car. Because in my mind, I knew if I broke that door, I knew I was admitting I needed help. And I would sit there and drink. And I'd come home, and your mom would say, "How was the meeting?" And I'd say, "Yeah, they didn't really have very much to say." Well, hell no, I never went into the meeting. So
it's easier to fool yourself than to
absolutely. And I touched on this before. Is that simple thought of all I have to do is not drink. That kept me drunk for a couple extra years. It's as weird as it sounds, because all I kept thinking every day I would go through this mental gymnastics. It's simple. Just don't drink. On paper, that does sound simple. However, for an alcoholic, it's not that simple.
How did that affect your mental state? going through that loop and loop and loop.
It's hard. That's hard to explain, because when you stay in that constant inebriated state under the influence, it's unless you've actually been there, to try to explain to somebody how your thinking is altered and how you're able to justify and rationalize your behaviors. And we talked about that, constantly moving the goalposts, and it's and that was going on, it was every day. I would it's throughout the course of every day. And I lived under this thing. It was for the last particularly year of my active addiction, it was every day I felt was going to be doomsday. I would be today's the day, I know it. I'm going to get arrested. I'm going to get caught. I'm going to get in trouble at work. My wife's going to find this out. And I this black cloud every day. And man, let me tell you, that is exhausting to live that way, where you're constantly, and that goes back to healthy habits. And part of getting healthy is you change your thinking process, your physical process. it's everything. It has to come in that. So
Yeah, a couple things I want to touch on from what you said. The consistency thing, and then like getting back into running. And so you could barely run like a half mile, a mile when you first got back into it.
Yeah.
So for our people, just the human body is amazing and your mind is amazing. So no matter how bad you're down and out, you can always change that and always get back to maybe not your old state if you're getting older, but you can definitely always improve. And I think that's a good life lesson. And we always touch on those small wins. So you started to see that growth through running, and that kind of correlated to like, hey, maybe I can not drink tomorrow and not drink the next day.
Yeah, and it really did, because again, I could see tangible results of that. I was getting better. This week I could run 5 miles, and this week the next week I ran 6, what have you. And it was, it also became very important to me to be present for my children. And, we did working out together, and your sister Bethany was in high school, and she was a very accomplished runner. And I got to train with her, and that was really important to me that we got to have those moments. That and then I could still take her a little bit, but then that eventually ended though. So
So we've always been kind of a family that works out, and that's kind of I think why I am how I am. Like if we go on vacation, or there's not even a day in this house where it goes by where it's like, have you worked out today? Like I always get that question asked, and it's like I almost feel obligated, like I have to work out. And
turkey trot.
Turkey trot, the Christmas runs. It's a good family thing we have going. Yeah, family challenge is actually coming up next month. We're working on that.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories are still to these. Every Thanksgiving Day and every Christmas Day, as a family, we do a run. Yeah. And we, and then we can't, no breakfast, no nothing, no presents until the run gets in. And so and I kind of started that after I got sober. And so that's always, that's very important to me. It might seem simple. If you're a parent out there, you get what that means to you. So.
Yeah. If you're a parent out there, challenge your family, level them up together, grow together, get better together.
Yeah.
So I kind of I don't even know this personally, but was there ever another time where you seriously tried to get sober?
I would think about it a lot. In fact, like the 6 months prior to going into rehab, I literally, I had phoned like rehabs 3 different times, and then I couldn't ever follow through with it. Yeah. And then, to say that I did, I never really tried. And honestly, I don't remember exactly when, and this is how far addiction can take you down. I can distinctly remember one day saying, "You know what? I'm going to just die a drunk." And when I thought that, it was comforting to me, because I was like, at least now I've admitted it and I know how it's going to end up. I was going to end up just like my dad. Yeah. And that was, and that's and this gets emotional to talk about, because one of the biggest things that helped me stay sober was that, and I don't know where I had this vision in my head and I couldn't get it out of it. I had this vision of I was watching my funeral, and my oldest daughter Brianna was talking to people, and she was saying, my dad was a good guy, but he was a drunk, and then I thought, man, I'm leaving my kids with the exact same legacy that my father left me with. And then so again, that's motivation to get sober. And but it's not, again, we talked on this last time, it still has to be about, you have to want to do it. It has to be for you ultimately, and then all that other stuff comes in line.
Yeah, so I mean, that definitely hit me hard. I think, man, co-host over here slacking. What's good, man?
It's
all good.
Hey, another little healthy tip: put your cell phones down every once in a while, turn them off, unplug, man. So
it's 2 o'clock.
Yeah, so that's definitely, I think that had to be a big reason why. And you said, you have to work on yourself, but that had to hit really hard. And
sure, yeah.
So
I touched on this before. Yeah, my love for you guys is just the same then as it is now. Okay, it's just that I was in an active addiction, and that's not an excuse. Let's be clear about one other thing, and this is very important: is that some people use like the fact that they have struggled with an addiction, that's like a blank check for all other behaviors. It's not, okay?
Yeah.
Other things that I did, and like not honoring my marriage as like I should be, or lying, whatever it is, not being the best employee. I know, even in addiction, I know that's wrong, and I know that shouldn't be. So it's very important to acknowledge that wrong is wrong. Okay, and so don't get into it. If you're out there, just because you're struggling with an addiction, that doesn't mean it's okay to do other behaviors. That doesn't give you the right to do that.
Yeah, I can definitely see people like using that as an excuse.
Oh yeah, it's easy to use as a crutch. I'd have never done this if I wasn't an alcoholic. And maybe there are things. I mean, you do things in addiction that you wouldn't normally do.
Yeah.
But you still know what's right and what's wrong.
Does it feel more comfortable or like comforting knowing that like your legacy is going to be different than what you saw in that vision? With your daughter and talking about your funeral, like you're very much a different person now.
Yeah.
Does that feel?
Well, sure. I hope it does. Okay, but that all can end. Sadly, that statistically speaking, there's still a better chance that I die in active addiction than not. Okay. Even with the years of sobriety. I don't get wrapped up in those stats too much because I control that.
Yeah.
So. I can all these things I've worked hard to regain and be important to me, my relationships with my family. That I can lose all that if I get complacent. If I I wish I could tell you addiction disappears, it goes away. It's not, and it's and sadly, if you do relapse, you don't pick up from where you left off. You end up picking up from where you would have been if you stayed in addiction the whole time.
Yeah,
it just goes harder.
Yeah, it's they're all stuff. That's stuff that all sucks to hear, by the way. So.
Yeah. So how does it feel? How important is it to? So you touched on being like maybe not a good person and using your addiction as kind of an excuse or a reason, like, hey, I wouldn't have done this because I was drinking or because I was using. So how important is it when you're getting sober to fix those things just as much as actually not?
Oh, it's more important than not drinking. I've said many times, stopping drinking really was the easy part. Changing all my other behaviors was the hard part, okay? Because you're not going to stay sober long term if you don't start changing those things. Being honest, working on yourself, having a level of gratitude for what you have in life. My life today is beyond my wildest dreams, and none of that happens without sobriety. First and foremost, getting sober, but I could be sober and be totally miserable, and that's not why I got sober. I got sober to be happy, to have an appreciation for life, and I hope I have that. Listen, we all have bad days, man. Life shows up, life is hard, and when you're in addiction, you make it much harder than it already is, so everybody has bad days. Don't get me wrong. Every day isn't sunshine and rainbows and hearts are blowing out my ass and all that, but it's, I have bad days like everybody else, okay? But my bad days today don't look near as bad as they did 10 years ago.
Yeah. So it's kind of been interesting for me to see kind of Bethany and Brianna turn 21 and start drinking and like socially. And how was that for you to kind of overcome? Was that a big fear you had for your kids that, oh, maybe they're going to end up like me. Maybe they're going to drink too much.
By the time they were old enough to start drinking, I had processed all that. But when I first got sober, I really was fixated on worrying. I said that, God, don't let this happen to any of my kids. And what I realized is that I can't control that. Yeah. Okay, I do know this, that hopefully not, but if any of my three children do have addiction issues, they've at least seen an example of somebody getting sober. Yeah. That's the best I can do.
Yeah.
We can get into the whole, maybe we will at some future podcast if these guys want, the whole nature versus nurture on addiction issues, because there's a lot involved in that.
Well, what do you think about? Do you think addiction is nature or nurture?
I think it can be both, okay? For me personally, I've come to this conclusion that if you would have put me in any family, a very happy, completely functional, loving, nurturing family, I believe I still would have become an alcoholic. I believe I was naturally predisposed to be an alcoholic. Okay. With all that said, trauma can lead to a lot of different behaviors, and the whole pain medication stuff is a whole nother ball game we could get into sometime. So nature versus nurture it's a complicated thing that we don't have enough time to cover here
I don't
today,
really think there's a set answer on that. I think you see
Yeah.
a lot of these guys get home from a war. A lot of these kids get famous real quick, and they get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And they take that painkiller, and then they're numbed.
Yeah, I do know that, having come from two parents who were alcoholics, my odds of being an alcoholic are far greater. There's no disputing
100%
that.
on there.
But there's people who come from completely families with zero addictions in their family who end up being alcoholics or addicts. They're outliers on their family. So there's no set answer for that. I have a brother who is he's not an alcoholic, has no addiction issues. My brother Mark, and he came from the same parents, grew up in the same family, and he didn't. He's the outlier in our family on that matter.
Yeah. Well, you're the outlier with cigarettes, but
And him, yeah.
But how do you see the image that you gave your kids? Like, I know for me, it definitely inspired me. Like, just by you getting sober and seeing those AA meetings and how they would go, that inspired me a lot. And I know you said that only you gave them a way to, if it happens, they can get sober. But
Yeah.
I feel like you definitely gave us more than that. And seeing you speak and help those people, at least for me, that helped me a lot. And
Well, that's part of the process, is that they say there's another saying, the only way to keep it is to give it away.
Yeah.
That means you gotta help others. You gotta be willing to reach out. And I'm naturally kind of wired that way. I've always, if you ask your mom, I just will give people stuff even when I was in addiction and stuff. I was a school teacher, I was a coach. So I've always wanted to give back to others. But when it comes to recovery, it's very important. Now, again, that goes back to that whole sober support network, because guess what? That person I'm helping today, I may need their help tomorrow.
yeah,
And it's happened.
your network is your net worth.
Yeah.
But so there might not really be a set answer to this question, but if you could go back and change it or do it over again, would you?
My life in general, or
Kind of just like the addiction and overcoming it. Would you erase that part out of your life, or?
Well, obviously, if I could choose whether to be an addict or not, it would be no.
Yeah.
I can't, so I don't spend time on
Yeah.
that. What I do say, my regrets are not over being an alcoholic. My regrets are how my behaviors impacted people I care about.
Yeah.
And how I wasn't the husband I should have been, the father I should have been, the employer I should have been. They are my regrets, okay? There's no shame in addiction.
Yeah.
There is shame in recognizing it and not doing anything about it, okay? Because my family deserved it for me to do that, so.
What's interesting? I think some of the most successful people and the most people that I kind of connect with and watch and learn from, a lot of them suffered from addiction problems. And I would say that
True.
most high-level athletes, they have an addiction issue. Most big-time rich business owners,
I don't like the word most. You want to be careful there on that. Okay?
I would say
there are obviously, yes,
not addiction issue. Not like they had a problem with a substance, but they're addicted to that craft.
I would tell you this. Oh yes,
That's true.
addictions are all can take place in all different forms. I would say this: if I ran a business, I wouldn't hesitate to hire people who are in recovery, because those individuals are determined to show their worth and to prove themselves, and that they are, they can be successful. And I will tell you this: when you're in active addiction, you can't do a job, any work that's harder than that.
Yeah.
You're how do I get my stuff? How do I get money? how do I not get caught? It's
It is impressive.
it's exhausting.
Yeah.
I don't like the word impressive, but when you look back on it, it's like I have those moments where I think back. I'm like, how did I keep it all going? You know, until eventually you don't though. I ended up I wasn't able to keep it going anymore. So
Yeah, so if you had something to say to someone who's struggling right now and going through it early on in the stages and they want to get sober, they're not sober yet, what would you tell them to do?
Well, first of all, you can do it. There is, that's why AA was important to me. I needed to see people who actually had done it. I needed to hear from this guy who said he was 5 years sober, who was 20 years sober, this lady who had 15 years, because I was like, wow, there's some people who have actually done it. Because at first I thought most of those people were lying, because originally I'm like, nobody can go 5 years without drinking, or using, In reality, they do. First of all, you need to know is that anybody is capable of recovery. If you're struggling, reach out. Hit us up here, man. So there's a way out for you. You don't ever have to feel this way again. And somebody told me that, and man, I was at my lowest, and they said, if you don't want to, you don't ever have to feel this way again. And that really resonated with me because I'm like, man, if that's true, I'm all in because how I felt right at that moment, I knew I never wanted to feel that way again. The problem is most people can't stay the course. Okay, very few people get sober the first time they try. Famous actor Robert Downey. I don't remember the exact number. I think he went to rehab 48 times before he got sober. And he said, thank God my family didn't stop at 47.
Yeah.
There is no set number. I went once and it worked, okay? I've known people that had to go 10 times, all right? I've known people that have quit drinking, relapsed, quit drinking again, okay? Not everybody's the same, okay? But I do believe everybody is capable of recovery if you're truly open to it.
How common is that to go to rehab and kind of just that first?
Oh, it's extremely. Very few people make it through the first year of In fact, I don't remember the exact numbers, but there's the number of people who are drinking within a month coming out of rehab or using again is extremely high. So.
And do you think things like AA and what is it, the 12 steps or
the 12 steps are what's taught in AA?
How important or how do you think that's the way for everybody?
No, absolutely not. There's not one set thing. For me, it was critical. That sober support group, learning the steps of AA. That's not everybody's story. Church can be very important to others. Again, many of us need individual psychotherapy to be working on some stuff because addiction also encompasses a lot of mental health issues, which is a whole nother ball game that should be addressed in some of these podcasts, maybe down the road. All right. Yeah. But you need to figure out, what are areas that you really need to work on. All right. And accept the fact that you're an alcoholic, you're an addict. That's what it is, but I don't have to keep living this way, man, because living that way is hard.
What do the early stages look like? In the very beginning, what does looking like an alcoholic look like when in the early stages? Because I'm sure most people are in that, or there's a couple people in it.
There's no answer to that, Ivan. There's people, this old idea that I'm good because I'm not living under a bridge, drinking from a brown bag. I must not be an alcoholic. There's people who are running $1 million businesses. Are hugely successful who struggle with addiction, and the number of people who are able to these so-called functional alcoholics is and I was one of those for a while until I wasn't, and then so there's I wish there was an easier answer for that. There just really isn't. There is a real phenomenon with particularly with women that they found out lately is that a lot of people who are professional, particularly professional women, for whatever reason, statistically they're seeing that a lot of professional women who never had real substance issues or drinking issues, as once they get their kids start to get raised, and within a year to 3 years they'll be full-blown alcoholics, and they're not real sure totally why that is, but it's a strange phenomenon.
You think that's a stress indicated thing, or?
It can be stress. Yeah. So, but again, remember, 90% of people out there don't fall into this category.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
You know.
So what was it like when you you said when somebody told you that you can never feel like this again, like you felt
you don't have to feel like
you don't
this.
have to feel like this again. When did you were you like, oh wow, like I actually feel good and I'm actually benefiting from not drinking and not using and changing my lifestyle?
Well, I knew within the first month, I one thing I recognized is that I wasn't getting in trouble anymore. So that was the first thing, you know. But I do distinctly remember I had been drunk for so long that after like towards the end of my rehab stint, I remember thinking to myself, I forgot what normal feels like.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't I've been drunk for so long. I didn't realize what being not being sick, not feeling, you know, the shaking, all the stuff that comes with it. I had actually forgot what it felt. You know, my new normal was being sick. You know, so that the one thing that is hard to also explain is what that takes a little while is that your mind starts to clear up. You come out of this like fog, and you start thinking clearly again, and that, you know, which hadn't happened for a long time.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think well I kind of want, so we said about if you're in the early stages and kind of realize you have a problem, what would you do? Say you're just getting sober maybe a month or two in, what would you say are the steps to stay sober, and what has helped you in the process of staying sober, especially in those early month or two under a year? I know you said the year's the worst.
Can be, yeah. You know, it's obviously be around other people, other sober people, eliminate things in your life that, I didn't go to places that served alcohol for a while. You know, I quit golfing because I associated golfing with drinking. You know, so it's
the green Gatorade.
The green
and
Gatorade.
Then what about
bottles,
we were just talking with Mom about you being the DD, the Christmas party or something.
That's another, yeah. So, you know, it's kind of weird.
Right.
Coming out of rehab, I was like, you still think that. I think I can just drop back into my life and live my life just without drinking. I can hang out with all my boys and do the same stuff, but in reality, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
You can't stay sober that way, you know, because it's
how long did it take you to get there?
To where I was comfortable with that.
Yeah, because like I know maybe 3-5 years ago you started doing a beach trip with the boys. Maybe it was sooner than that.
Yeah, it was like, I would say within 5 years. One thing I do, like in a couple weeks, I'll be going away with all my buddies for a long golf weekend, and but I always drive. Not that I expect something, but if I get where I start to feel uncomfortable, get squirrely, then I can leave. So I don't get myself in a situation, you know. You have to know that personally. You know, there's people who I used to hang with who I will never hang with again, okay? And then there's people who I hung with that I didn't hang with for a while, who I now will do stuff with because I'm in a good place. I can go anywhere today and do anything and not have fear of relapsing.
Yeah.
All right. But you have to know that, you know, and it's, that whole people, places, things, boredom and stress. They're the 5 things that you have to be careful and identify, you know?
Yeah. So how did it feel so I haven't kind of touched on your relationships and looking back at that image you had in your head, but so kind of regaining your marriage and kind of actually
we don't have enough time for that topic,
but you had to know a point where you were like, okay, maybe 3 years in, maybe 2 years in, you were like, well, this feels good. I'm here. I'm showing up for my family.
Yeah.
Feels better.
And I know that it was kind of interesting. We would go to Uncle Mark's graduation party for his boys, and I remember it was like a huge topic, like they can't have beer around, or like Mom saying this and that.
Yeah, that becomes at some point that becomes and I get everybody's worried because you know, when you come home from rehab, you're walking on eggshells. You know, your mom was asking like, what do I need to do? In reality, you guys aren't the problem. I was the problem, and you know, and so it actually at this point, if we go somewhere and, you know, within my family, and they say, we're not having alcohol because of you, that's almost offensive to me. Because, you know, you guys you're living your life, man. That's not going to, trust me, if I wanted to drink, I would go drink. I'm not going to drink because you have beer at this party, you know. You know, but again, my first 6 months sober, I wouldn't have went to that event
Yeah.
because I didn't have what I would call my sober legs under me. Yeah, so, yeah.
So how important was it, like, or actually, what did it look like changing your social circles to like getting away from people, not going to events, and like just changing your life?
Well, that was just you had to, you know, I cut people out of my life, and I also was I was on house arrest and other things, so I wasn't able to go to some places. So you know, so that was decided. Some of that was decided for me, you know, and you know, and so. You know, and honestly, I can honestly say my friends have been supportive. You know, even ones they didn't understand alcoholism and stuff, but none of my friends who I really hung with, partied with, none of them have ever like tried to get me to do anything. Or I can only remember one time in 10 years of sobriety where somebody like tried to. We were at the beach and this guy was like asked me like 3 times. He said, "You mean you're not going to have a drink with us?" And then your mom actually said something to him. She stepped in. She said something, but she was. But there's no. The thing is, we're not as important as we make ourselves in our mind. Nobody really cares that I don't drink anymore.
Sure.
It's not impacting their life, you know. You know that might. You know, to me, I was like, man, my boys are going to be devastated. They're not going to be able to move on. Of course they are. You know, life. Everybody's replaceable, man. You know, so nothing. You know that. So.
I feel like that's a good rule, like whether it's like people like that are afraid to go to the gym because people are looking at them.
Yeah, great rule.
Or like afraid to do things, or like even us hopping on the podcast worried about what people are thinking. Yeah. No one actually really cares.
Yeah, we're not that important.
Yeah,
it's so it's
when we get haters, then we know we're doing the right thing. You know? But I think your story is great, and obviously, hopefully you don't end up in the situation you do, but it's taken me a lot of time, and just at the age that all this went down and seeing you help people after you helped yourself and got through this, it's really inspired me to just, I see that anything is possible. No matter how down and out you are, you can always come out of it. And my whole goal in life is I want to help people. That's why I started this. If I can just help one person, that would be awesome. So
I believe everybody's goal in life, I've always believed this, even I'd say everybody's goal in life should be to help other people better themselves. You know, and particularly it starts with your own family and then branches out there. Because you think about that, if you're working with the idea of to help other people better themselves, you inevitably are going to also grow from it and be better and healthier. You know, so it's
this podcast has held me accountable a lot, and I'm going to actually film and try to film the whole family challenge we got going on. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to kick my dad's ass sitting right over here.
Oh, here we go. All right, so I'm old, but I'm still in the game. Just remember. So
Before we start cutting stuff
off, go ahead.
Was the part where you talked about the lady at the AA meeting, was that in the first?
It might not have been, but yeah, those, like, I can clearly remember, okay, I won't say names here, but I can clearly remember certain people and that lady saying that she was gonna drink and take these pills and kill herself, and she dumped it down the drain because of what you had told her. Like, at that age, man, like, that just engraved in me. And I've always been a kind of emotional person, you know, and things hit me, but like I just bite my tongue, you know, I hold it in. But I was emotional at that, and then like bringing my Graham and Pap to the AA meeting, I remember that extremely. And
you know, it's important. It was not everybody does this. To me, it was important to expose my entire family because I was investing so much time in AA and meetings and doing it that I wanted you guys to see what I did and just not have an understanding of it. You know, not everybody necessarily feels that the same way about that, but for me that was important because I wanted
like
to.
You kind of downplay how like awesome that actually is, though.
Yeah.
Like we bring it up and you're like, yeah, it's just, but no, like that's
no.
incredible. You have to admit that's incredible. Like you quite literally saved someone's life.
And it quite literally set the path of my life.
They saved their own life.
Yeah.
So it's that just shows you that to be, you know, you don't know when you're what you say and what you do if that has an impact on somebody.
Yeah.
You know, and so. You know, I didn't save that lady's life. That lady, you know, the fact that I said something that maybe made her stop and then pause, which is cool, you know. But you know, that lady's still sober, I believe.
That's
as a matter
awesome.
of fact, so.
Yeah, I hope
There you
everyone
go.
Yeah. So.
at that age was doing well. The guy with the long beard, he was always super nice and chill.
Yeah,
I don't know his name or
It's,
won't
it's a
mention
good,
it.
it's a good group. It was an
Yeah, it was a good group
interesting
there.
group of people. So
Yeah.
it's a-
I can
so.
imagine.
Just one more question here. How important was religion and tuning in with God? How important was that to you? And was it mom that?
I don't really want to go down the rabbit hole of religion too much. I mean, they really say you should got to find a higher power, that something's bigger than you. Here's the only way I will frame this is that I went 10 years without being able to go a day without drinking, and all of a sudden I was able to stop drinking.
Yeah.
And not have cravings and all. And I had no logical explanation for that. And so something bigger than me had to be working, you know,
Yeah.
because I didn't have the ability just to do that like that on my own. And, you know, and so, and I can honestly tell you, and I've not been close to drinking in 10 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's not everybody's story, you know, but I haven't had a moment where I was like close to grabbing a drink and drinking. And,
Yeah.
you know, and so, you know, so again, it makes me believe something bigger than me is at work.
Yeah, I believe that's important. We kind of talk about that on here. I'm not the biggest religious or this and that, but I do notice that just being in a family that did go to church and did go around things, whenever things go bad in my life and I'm alone with my thoughts, I'm trying to reach up to a higher power and feel something,
Exactly.
you know? So I think it is important to have that higher power, whether it's God or whatever it is for you.
You know, praying is just talking to you know, and
Yeah.
being real and honest with yourself. That goes back to that being real, being honest with yourself. And I use the term meditating more than praying. You
Yeah.
know? And that's like that's when I'm running. You know that I'm almost in a meditative state the whole time. That's why I don't really enjoy running with other people anymore.
Yeah.
I enjoy that solitude of that.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's super important, or I just, to me personally, to just like believe in something higher than
Yeah.
yourself. Whether it's a
100%.
God, whether it's whatever you want it to be, just understand that something's looking down and watching you.
Yeah.
I think it, like that personally, like I believe in God and He's looking down on me. It changes how my actions, you know what I mean? I don't steal, I don't really do anything bad, you know, God's watching me
Sure.
at all times. It just keeps you accountable, you know, He's watching you.
That's pretty backed
said
by
it-
facts, too.
You said the key word,
Okay.
accountable. You know, it's you're holding yourself accountable to a certain standard, and then when you do that, you know, your life is going to get. Are you going to? Could bad shit happen to good people? Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, but you know, when you're held accountable, you know, it's like you guys with your athletic backgrounds, when you have somebody, you hold each other accountable. You guys go to the gym together every day. You know, there's days where Bryce feels like doing it more than you do, and there's days where you feel, you know, but knowing that if you don't show up, Bryce is not gonna be disappointed.
Yeah.
You know, it's a big
Or knock
thing.
on my door.
Yeah, right.
You and Austin came running in here one
Yeah.
morning.
Yeah, we've done that before.
Yeah, so I think we touched on everything that we kind of cut off last time, and I think this was a really good episode. I think some of the key takeaways were just that, man, if you put your mind to something and believe in it, believe there's a higher power, believe in the group of people that you have around you, and believe in yourself and are honest and true to yourself, that you can conquer anything, whether it's addiction, whether it's starting that new diet, whether it's quitting your job and trying something that actually makes you happy and fulfills your life, or realizing you're in a marriage that's not good and getting out of it. Take those next steps. You can do better. You can change your life. And I think you had a great story, Dad. I think the people really liked the last one. I think they're going to really like this one.
Cool.
So thank you for having on. It was a great episode.
Yeah, thanks guys. Good.
Super
good.
powerful.
Yeah. So
Awesome.
subscribe, like.
Yeah, tell 'em.
Yeah, do all those things that I don't know how to do. So.
Yeah, he probably doesn't even subscribe, but
I don't know how to do it, or I would.
all right, thank you guys. I think this was a great episode. Stay tuned for Tennessee. Stay tuned for the family challenge we got coming up. And yeah, follow me on TikTok. Follow me on Instagram. It will not be in the link because for some reason YouTube doesn't accept my driver's license. Who knows? We'll figure it out. But Bryce Weaver on everything. Subscribe, follow me, like it up, comment. Peace out.
Sound